Cobra Golf, talking about metalwoods with Tio.
Great, Josh. We've got some neat things here in terms of the BioCell product line, but I want to talk a little bit about CG and what it does to performance of the golf club. What we try and do when you look at the BioCell Plus, for instance, with the Ventilum Crown, we're trying to take all the weight out of the top that we can and put it down low. We believe low CG is the best place to be in terms of the way golf clubs perform. When you have low CG, what you find is when you have an impact normally for the center or somewhere above the center, the golf club will actually, with a lower CG, will actually rotate a little bit that way. And when you do that, that's what we call the gear effect. So when you do that, the ball rotates a little bit less spin and higher launch because the head moves back a little bit. What we want to try and do is keep the CG as low as possible so that the golfer has the most chance to hit a shot that's high launch and low spin. If, for instance, we had a CG that was too high, when we hit it up here, it would actually do the rotation the other way. And that gear effect would create lower launch and more spin. So that's the challenge of CG to the impact of the golf ball in the head. And we're trying to move the CG as low as possible. And that's a constant challenge. We're taking every gram of weight out of the head in every place we can to lower it. The sleeve, the hosel system, the face, the crown. That benefit gives golfers longer shots with no change in COR. The challenge to distance is really multiple. Since COR has been limited since about 1998, the increases in distance we've seen are really due to this change in the CG position, moving it lower. Now, what we believe here at Cobra Golf is for most golfers, lower is better when it's a little bit back. We want to take the weight out of the face and move it back. The challenge you see is if you keep that weight forward, what happens to the golf club is the face doesn't close up as well from dynamic loft, and we get the difficulty in hitting shots high enough. So the challenge also is you have very little forgiveness. Forgiveness is about moment of inertia. And when we measure moment of inertia, it's about the axis through the center of the head and how well the club resists twisting on impacts that are heel and toe in this orientation. So what you're trying to do, since most golfers don't hit exactly in the center, you want to give them the most benefit to those mishits. So we believe that inertia is very beneficial for golfers of all types, because when you have mishits, you want to maintain the speed and maintain the distance. So that's why we want to move that weight low and back. There is one club, however, that we do a low front CG. That's the BioCell Pro. And Ricky has been playing that this year and really benefiting from that. Ricky is a high launch, high spin player. And those are the players that benefit from front CGs. Because Ricky also is one of the few players that when you look at where his impacts are, they're right around the center. If you look at most golfers, look at your own driver. Where do you think your impacts are? And I'm looking at Josh as I'm saying this. Most impacts are not on the center. So anytime you're not on the center, you need the forgiveness. You're going to lose a massive amount of distance on your average drive because your average drive is not in the center. On the center, the thing that's important is the low CG and the ability of yourself to square the face up. We know that a lot of golfers, that's a big challenge as well. Squaring the face up is also a function of CG front to back. And if you think about front CG designs, they're a lot like the old Blade 1 irons. Blade 1 irons are very hard to square up. CG back allows the face to close naturally in the swing as that center of gravity tries to align with the shaft and with your hands. So back CG and MOI are really beneficial to most golfers, especially if you don't hit it on center every time. The easy way to check CG on your driver is do it like that and you just balance it. The way we measure CG in the industry is called a balance point CG, and that's basically just balancing the head on something that's fairly flat and stable. That gives you the basic location of where it is front to back. When you see this on most driver heads, they're going to be in that range where we see here, roughly about an inch back from the front of the face. In general, most drivers today are all about that same spot. When we talk about CG differences front to back, we're talking about millimeters of change, which do have important effects in performance, but they're not, as some companies say, because you can't have the center of gravity of the club back there. It won't balance back there. That's not where the CG. Center of gravity, by definition, is the center of the gravity of the body of what you're talking about. So you can do it that way. You can also do it face-wise to see where it is. That face balance point, again, is perpendicular to the loft. So that tells you where that is. If any of you want to do a little bit of your trigonometry, you can take those measurements off the leading edge and triangulate exactly where it is. That's how we used to do it in the old days before we had sophisticated gauges to measure CG. But it's very easy to see where the CG is high and low relative to the perpendicular face and also relative to the sole. It's a pretty easy trick, and any driver that you can take the head off, you can check that. But CG is the most important thing in terms of the performance. Again, the relative position, we want it to get it low. We're spending a lot of energy to make it low. And we want to have it back more in the middle, not all the way back here, but in the middle, because you're going to get the optimum of both low CG and forgiveness with that position. Same thing when I balance it this way. We can kind of see where that is, relatively speaking. Again, takes a little bit of practice, but CG-wise, you can see I want to have it usually center to a little bit heel for most golfers. We only see tour players of that type that really want it on the toe. And again, in general, that helps with face closure. That helps with being the general spot of where most impacts are. And again, it's in the center of gravity by definition. So it's pretty easy to do that and have a little trick with measuring the CG of your head. But relatively, the more we get in the heel, the more the head will help close. When you look at our Baffler XL product, we move it more in the heel. When we look at a BioCell Plus or a BioCell Pro, it's not quite as heelward. And that's one of the design features we built into it for the specific golfer looking for that center of gravity and that performance.